Hi, we're going to start our Unit 4. And we're going to start our Unit 4 with quantitative data. Quantitative data is different than what we have been doing, which was categorical, where they staff or students. Was it low blood pressure, medium blood pressure, high blood pressure? Those were categories, or qualitative is how you would call that in science. But now we're going to get to quantitative. And honestly, we will spend more of our year dealing with quantitative data than the categorical. So here we go. There are several ways that we are going to represent quantitative data graphically, and the first one we're going to learn about is box plots. You have seen box and whisker plots before in your past math classes. It may have been I think that in Texas, the last time you've seen box and whisker plots in math class was in 6th grade. So it's been a while. So we're going to pretty much start from scratch and reteach you how to do that. All right, so the first key thing that you need to know is we will take a set of data and place that data in order from least to greatest. So then we will find the 5 most important values in that set of data to represent it. And here's what ends up happening. So we end up getting the minimum, okay? And so then you can see that here we have the minimum, the quartile 1, and we'll talk about what that is specifically, how you get that in a minute. But you can see quartile 1 is the left side of the box part, the median, which you're probably more familiar with. Median is what you get when you line all your data up from least to greatest, and it's the one smack dab in the middle of the data. Also, you can think median of the highway, going down the median of the highway, it's in the middle. Quartile 3 is Q3, that is this top part of the box. And then, of course, the maximum. Okay, so that's going to be our 5 indicators that we will use to make our box plot. Now, some key characteristics you need to know. First, the important thing that a box plot does for us is it allows to not only see what those values are for those 5 numbers summary, but we can see how spread out the data is. What happens is each section contains 25% of the data. So if there were 100 pieces of data that we have, 100 pieces of data, that's a lot, then there would be 25 of them in each one of these sections. So one thing that kind of you have to get straight in your brain is that you can't see. I purposefully did not put this median located smack dab in the center of the box because even though they both contain 25 pieces of data, there may be different amounts of how spread out that data is in that section. So that's very important to understand. So we're going to talk about that right now. So first of all, you can see that I have a number line down here at the bottom. I went ahead and I wrote that in. And so because your box plot is always drawn to scale. So here we have this minimum, which is at the 2, and then we have this Q1, which was at 7. So those 25 pieces of data had a span of 5. Okay, this 25% of data from Q1 to the median, that's 25% of the data. And look, it's a wider spread because it is spread out from 7 up to 13, and so that's 6. So it has a wider spread than this one from the min to the Q1. Now, look here at this 25% of data. From the median to the Q3, look, it is only 2 numbers wide. So that's a lot of data located that are number values from 13 to 15. So there's going to be lots of repeats or lots of little small decimals or something such as that, okay? So that is the reason that this part of the box looks smaller, because that 25 numbers is less varied. Very important. It is not because there is less data in here. Every section has the same amount of data. And then here we have from 15 to 21. So that is a spread of 6 also. So we could say these 25% of data, this quartile from the third one to the max, has the same spread as from the Q1 to the median because they both spread 6. All right. So now we're going to talk. One of the other key things that we want to talk about, of course, we've already mentioned here these percentiles. Every box contains exactly 25%, but another important item is this middle 50% because that is the box. So that distance from Q1 to Q3 is this thing called the interquartile range. So that interquartile range is an important indicator of the spread of the data because a big chunk of it is centered that in fact half of it is centered from Q1 to Q3. So that has its own name. It is called interquartile range. It is the middle 50%. And we'll be using that also when we are finding our outlier fences because that is something that you did not do in 6th grade that we will add to it in right now. So we'll add to that outliers. So here is kind of the discussion of the outliers, and then we'll go practice this. So there is actually specific mathematical definitions for what an outlier is. Outliers are data points that are, of course, far outside the data. Well, what's considered far outside the data? Well, here's mathematically what it is. You do, to get the lower fence, you do the quartile 1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, so let's go back and talk about that. That IQR is this distance from Q1 to Q3. So technically, we need to do some computing first, and we know that that IQR is that distance from Q3 to Q1. So you do Q3 minus Q1, and that will give you a number. So look here, in this case, from 7 to 15. So in this case, I can tell from 7 to 15, my IQR is 8. Okay? All right. So what I would do in this case, if we were looking mathematically, I would take Q1, which was 7, and I would subtract 1.5 times that IQR of 8. Okay? And so then I'm going to get this lower fence. And so what is that? 7 minus 12. Okay, so then that's going to give me at -5. So look here, I can tell that where that would be is way down here. It's off the screen. That's a fence outside of there. So if my data doesn't go to the below the lower fence, so here is where outliers would be. If there was any data out here to the left of the lower fence, you would have lower outliers. But I can tell we do not have that in this particular case. Okay, let's take a look here at the upper fence. It is defined as Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So in our case, that Q3 was 15. So we're going to do 15 plus 1.5 times that upper or that IQR. And so 15 plus 12 is 27. So once again, I can see our maximum is 21. So our outlier fence is going to be off the charts. I can't even draw it so high up there. But if you had data above the upper fence, you would have outliers. So data below the lower fence. In fact, I'm going to write that in here. I think I have that here. If we have data below the lower fence, or above the upper fence is an outlier. Okay, and I have a song that has that on there. Now, there is an extreme outlier rule, and I don't think we're going to mess with that. That is if it's more than 3 IQRs outside, we would mark it with an asterisk. So if you ever saw that, that's what's happening there, but we won't really go into that much. Okay. Very good. Let's go ahead and take a look at this visualization. Here we go. Here is if, say, you had an odd number of pieces of data. Okay, so we had, actually, I think I think this is the even 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so that actually, because it's going from 0 to 9, is an even number of data. Okay, so here we have an even number of pieces of data. So if we had that in order, then the middle is going to be with 5, these 5 on the bottom half, these 5 on the top half. And so to get that median, we would actually have to average the fourth, and the fifth piece of data. So we would then have the median as 4.5. Okay. But then here's how you get Q1. Q1 is essentially the median of the bottom half. So if you take a look at these 5 numbers down here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 numbers, then the middle of that would be this right here. So our Q1 is basically the median of that lower half. Well, likewise, if you have this upper half, the median, Q3 is going to be that median of the upper half. And so then that is how you get your quartiles. Okay. All right. So this next one is that we have got 11 pieces of data. So this is an odd number. So what happens if I have 11 pieces of data and I divide it by 2, then that's like 5.5. Okay. So if that's 5.5, then the median is going to be the 6th piece of data. So then the median will be the 6th piece. Watch this. Data piece number 1, data piece number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Data piece number 6 is that median. Now, I will, and some calculators, this is actually, there's 2 methods, whether you count the median or not whenever you're computing your quartiles. Our calculator does not. So our calculator then would go like this and use these bottoms 0 up to 4 and not include 5 when we are computing that bottom part. So Q1 again is at 2. And the same thing here, from 6 up to 10, 8 is that Q3. All right, so let's do this. Let's put this into action. Here is just another visual that you can see. And so we'll move on. Here we go. Oh, there is songs to help you remember how to do this. And so we'll get into that in just a second because it's very annoying. It's this one right here, this Boxplot song. It is probably my least favorite song of all my songs. It's the most annoying, and it's the most popular. It's the one that it's most popular because lots of elementary teachers will use it. Okay, and so anyway, but it does get into your head, and every time I teach it, I hear it all day long. So let's do that. So here, this is going to be our little 10 Little Indians song. And so let me go ahead and pull that up. Let's pull that song up. Here we go. Boxplot song right here. Here we go.
Scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, put those outliers on. Scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, label, label, label. Scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, scale box, fences, whiskers, that's how you make a box plot.
All right, so there we go on that. We'll get to describe the distribution later. Okay, so there we go. So when we make our box plot, we'll hear that scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers. So here we go. Let's do this. So here we have Karma's family, and we're going to first she wants to she wants to get a minivan. She goes biking, so she has all the cargo spaces in order, or we want to figure out what's going on with all of the minivans that she looks at. Here we go. So first step, put all the data in order from least to greatest. So we're going to do that here. And so then I have done that for you because so I have written this out here, and I'm just going to kind of talk you through how I got those numbers. So first step, put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So that's what we did first. There we go. Okay, next. So let me think. How many pieces of data were there? I think there was 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep, 15 pieces of data. So you remember what I do to kind of think about how do I figure out which one is going to be my median? I go 15 divided by 2, okay, and that equals 7.5. Okay, so then that tells me that the eighth piece of data is going to be my median. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's the eighth piece of data. And because what that's doing is that is your median, and then that splits. You have 7 pieces down here below it, and these 7 pieces up here above it. Okay, so that's how I figure out the median. I know that you can like knock off the bottoms and knock off the tops and do all that kind of stuff. But when we start getting into some bigger sets of data, I mean, here's another skill we can learn 7.5, the eighth one. Then, now, if this came out evenly, then we'll talk about what's going to happen with that in a minute. So if that came out like 14 divided by 2 and it was number 7, then we'll talk about that shortly. All right, next, find the Q1. Q1 is the median of the bottom half. Well, I have 7 pieces of data down here, and 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So the fourth one is that. So there's my Q1, and then I do the same thing up top. So we'll also find one of the skills that I'll use is go down from the bottom. So the fourth one from the bottom is Q1. The fourth one down from the top is Q3. All right, so now that we have all of that listed, let's graph our information. So here we go. So one of the things that we have to do, okay, first we'll write out our 5-number summary. There was our min, our Q1 was 58.5, our median was 73.5, Q3 was 75.5, and that max is 103.5. Okay, so now we have to get this IQR. Okay, so remember that IQR is Q3 minus Q1. And these are formulas that you have to remember. Okay, in fact, I do have another song about what this interquartile range does. And so we'll listen to that there. You have that notes up here. Okay, so here we go.
Interquartile range, the middle 50%. You use it to find the upper and lower outlier fence.
So kind of memorize these formulas while this is going on. Here we go. There's the lower rule.
It is Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. Q1 minus 1.5 IQR.
So memorize that lower rule. Here's the upper fence rule.
Upper outlier fence. It is Q3 plus 1.5 IQRs. Q3 plus 1.5 IQRs.
This dog says, okay, I have the box, but I need your help to complete the box and whisker plot. And the cat says, I do not like where this is going. Okay. All right, so there is that. Let's go ahead then now and go back to doing our computing. Okay, so we got our Q3 minus Q1 is that interquartile range, that middle 50%. And then we're going to use that to compute our fences. So here we go. So that's 17 for the IQR. So now here's our lower outlier fence. It is Q1 minus 1.5 IQRs. Q1 minus 1.5 IQRs. So plug in the numbers. That's 58.5 minus 1.5 times 17. So that lower fence is at 33. And then we got the upper outlier fence. It is Q3 plus 1.5 IQRs, Q3 plus 1.5 IQRs. So that is at 101. So let's go down here and start doing our graphing, which is that scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers. Okay, so when we take a look at this blank page that we've got to do the graphing on down here at the bottom, I've given you this number line and we need to do a scale. So what you do to decide, okay, what numbers do I use and such, I know that my max was that 103.5 and then my minimum was that 56.5. Okay, so I'm seeing how much that spread is, and that's, somewhere around 50. Okay, so how many things do we have here? So that's what we do is we think, okay, what is the spread that I have? And then I need to go and then I can do these, make them go by something easy, go by fives or twos or whatever. So I think if I'm starting at 56.5 is the minimum, I think I'm going to start at 55 down here. And I think I'm just going to go by fives: 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80. I might have on mine, let me look at my key and see if I decided to go by something smaller. So let me see how I did that. Nope, I just did that. Oh, I started at 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, and so on. Okay, so get your numbers on there. Now, let's take a look at the next part. So that's our scale. So remember what we got? Our scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers. That's how you make a box plot. Okay, so there is our scale. Now we're going to go ahead and do our box. Okay, so the box is going to go from your Q1 to your Q3. So that's what you're going to do on that. And so we want to then put this box from what's the Q1? 58.5. So find 58.5 and then go to 75.5. Okay, and then that's how you're going to put your box in there. So there's how I got my box, 58.5 to 75.5. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and stick that median in there. And again, I'm using these numbers down here at the bottom for that. Okay, so scale, box. Now, don't put those whiskers on yet. Fences is next. Scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers. So fences. So fences is these outlier fences. So I see 33. Oh, look, I have, well, that's weird. I have my lower fence at a very wrong place. Okay, so that's not correct. But anyway, 33, of course, would be way down here, not even on the chart. Okay, so I don't like that I messed that little fence up there. Okay, so that fence was wrong. Okay, so there's now. Then we have the upper fence at 101. So I drew in, here's that upper fence at 101. Now, scale, box, fences. We just did fences. And now here comes the whiskers. Okay. So if you do not have any outlier on the lower side, which we do not, that minimum will not go past it, then I can just go ahead and draw my whisker to that minimum, 56.5. Okay. So scale, box, fences, whisker. Okay. However, put those outliers on. Since I see that my maximum of 103.5, since I have data above the fence, I will put a dot for each piece of data above the fence. So let me go up here and look and see how many pieces are above 101, how many pieces of data are above 101. And so what I notice is there is only that one. Okay, so here's that fence is in here. And so just 103.5 is the only upper outlier. So that's a dot right there. Now, here is the big, big, big mistake that my students make. So listen up, watch out. Here is a big old mistake. Do not let your whisker touch that fence unless there's a piece of data on that fence. If there was 101 on that fence, okay, but there's not. So do not take this whisker out to your max and cross the fence. No, no, no. This whisker goes to the next piece of data inside the fence. The next piece of data inside the fence. So look up here. If our fence is at 101, the next piece of data inside the fence is 98. So that is where our fence goes to, or our whisker goes to. All right, scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers, scale, box, fences, whiskers, label, label, label. So here I labeled. The min is 56.5. Q1 is 58.5. Median, 73.5. Q3, 75.5. Look at this 98. I labeled this 98 even though it's not, because it's a notable location. It's the end of a whisker, even though it's not the max. Okay. And then that max is that 103.5. You would, if you had multiple pieces of data that are outliers, they're all notable. So you would label each one. You just put what their numbers are. Okay, so that is the basics of how to do a box plot. So now I'm going to give you a moment to take a look at the next page and see if you can start trying to do that, and then we'll check and see how you did. So I'm going to stop this video here, give you a chance to work on the next one, and we'll see how you do it. All right, good luck.